Hello fly tyers, welcome back. My name is Matt and thank you for stopping by the channel. Now I've got a really fun, easy pattern for you today. This one is called a Squirrel Hair Nymph. Now it's very similar to Dave Whitlock's Red Fox Squirrel Hair Nymph, which he created in the 1960s, fishing on the White River in Arkansas. Now the tying techniques of how he does his and how I tie mine are exactly the same. The main difference, or really the only difference, is he uses red fox squirrel hair for the body, and I just use regular squirrel hair for the body. Now, I'll tell you why I do that, because I make this nymph in a whole variety of colors using my own squirrel mix dubbing. Now, let me tell you a little bit how I do that. It's pretty simple. I go to Walmart and get one of these just containers right here for about $5. I drill holes in it, and then I get some acrylic yarn, which this is a multicolored, and I would get one with some reds and purples and yellows and all that in it too. But I cut that up and I take a squirrel. One squirrel got me all this. So you just shave the squirrel, the belly hair and the back hair, and then you kind of mix it up. So what I've got right here is, this is just straight up squirrel, back and belly, and then maybe a mixture of back and belly. But then all these up here, the colors are probably a 50-50 mix of natural squirrel and then say a pink or a blue or a red or an olive acrylic yarn. So yeah, for about $10, I can make a couple of years, or at least maybe 5 years worth of dubbing from one squirrel. So take a look at this video. If you like the dubbing, and I use it all the time, I tie a lot of these squirrel hair bodied nymphs for using here in Maryland, and they've done great for me. They're very simple patterns. They don't really imitate anything. They just kind of look alive and they look edible. So they've always worked in a variety of sizes that I tie them in. So do take a look at this dubbing when I'm tying this fly, and let me know if you'd like me to do a video on how I make my own DIY dubbing, because it can really save you a ton of money. Oh yeah, before I forget, if you left a comment trying to win the Barry Ord Clark book, stick around to the end, I'll be doing that drawing. So before that, let's tie this squirrel body hair nymph. So there's one in the vise, a squirrel hair nymph. I'm tying this on a size 12. It's a 2X long nymph hook. And I'm going to use 0.15 weight and put about 10 or 12 wraps, pretty much just at least a half of a hook shank, or weight it to your preference. If you like to fish it really deep or in really fast water, you might put heavier wire and more of it. But I think about a half a hook shank is probably sufficient. Now I'm going to use black 70 denier thread. I'll lay a dam right behind it, then take my thread up over it, put a dam in the front, then bring the thread back to the bend of the hook. Okay. Now let's do the tail. Let's get that a little more parallel to the ground there. The tail is just red fox or red squirrel, fox squirrel. So red fox squirrel tail, just a fair sized chunk of it, and you'll want to put it in your stacker. Now if you don't have a red fox squirrel tail, just use regular squirrel tail. Let's see if we can get this out of here without it falling. Sometimes it wants to stay in the front half. If it does that, just go slowly and stacked pretty well there, well enough. We might have a few fibers we want to pull out, but I think that's going to be fine. And it's about a half of a body length is what Dave Whitlock did with his version, so which is maybe just a little bit longer than a hook gap, but we're pretty close to a hook gap. Now you want to be careful. Squirrel is real slippery and it will start spinning around the hook on you. So I do a couple of medium wraps and then, several of those, I guess, before I start putting it down real tight. You see that? It just spun on me again. So just be careful. You can always put a drop of super glue down on your thread base, but I just try to go slow and be careful. And we use some of that squirrel to help build up that taper going up to our weight. So just get in here and trim this as close as you can get it. You might want to throw a few more wraps down right here just to try to smooth this part out. It's pretty furry underbody, so you don't have to worry about a perfectly smooth taper there. Now the rib for a size 12 or an oval gold tinsel and a medium works well. If you're tying this smaller down to 16s or below, you'd probably want to go to a wire rib, a thinner wire. But I think this oval tinsel looks pretty good on these bigger sizes. So just get that caught in. I'm using some of that tinsel to help smooth out this section between the weight and the back end, I guess. So let's put some wax on. Now this is one of the cool things about this nymph. You can really dub it any color you want. I'm using an olive squirrel mix. It's probably 60–70% squirrel and then 30% or so of olive acrylic. And I'm just going to put it on here, maybe a couple inch noodle, not too tight. We want it kind of buggy. And we're only going to go maybe a little bit more than halfway, maybe the 60% point with this dubbing, and then we're going to change the color on it. So get that started there. I'll take a couple wraps until I'm laying dubbing, and now spin it just a little bit tighter. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. And let's put some more wax on here, and now we go to straight up squirrel dubbing, squirrel body hair, just a little dubbing mix with the under fur and body hair. This part is going to be pretty spiky, but that's the intent. It's just the thorax right up under the legs. So roll this on here, I guess as tight as you can get it, and then finish your body with this darker color squirrel, at least as wide as the abdomen. So I'm going to go with a little bit more than that, a little bit farther up. Okay, now I think that body is going to be fine right there. Now let's wrap this rib. I'm not going to counter wrap it because this oval tinsel is harder to get it to lay flat than the wire. So I'm just wrapping this with the grain, or with the way I wrapped the dubbing on. So just 5 or 6 wraps to get you up to the front. Couple of wraps up here to lock that in, maybe another 2 or 3 to really secure it before you cut it off. Now this is a point where you'd want to take your brush. If it's not buggy enough for you, just take your dubbing brush and then brush it out a little bit. In this case, I think it's pretty buggy. We don't necessarily need to do that, but if you need to, now's when you want to do that. So the legs on this guy, or the hackle, it's just Partridge. The natural would be fine. If you had a darker gray natural, would look pretty good. I'm using a brown. I think brown looked pretty good with this tail and with the olive body. But if you don't have a brown Partridge, just use whatever you got. I would probably stick with Partridge. I would use a gray Partridge before I would do a brown hen soft hackle or anything like that. So I think it's more important for it to be Partridge than for it to be brown. So I'm going to take a good 3 or 4 wraps to secure that in. Now I'm going to fold this back over on itself and really lock it in right here. And we might have some stubs right here to trim. Can you see those? A little bit. So I'll reach in here and just trim these. That's going to be fine. I didn't get them all that close, but you're not going to be able to see them after I put a couple of wraps of this hackle. So I'm going to take my hackle pliers here, which you pretty much need to. I've got about 1 inch of this feather to work with. So let's try 2 wraps and see what that's going to do for us. I think 2 wraps should be sufficient. It's not a real heavily dubbed soft hackle type fly. So I think that's going to be just fine right there. So I'm going to catch this hackle feather in right up here at the top with 2 wraps before I trim off this excess. Is that tight enough? Let's go ahead and put another tighter wrap. Okay, that's a pretty tight wrap. Now we can get in here and just snip this excess feather off as close as you can get. And if you want to, just push these last of those fibers back and build your head. So I'll put my thread right behind the eye and then build a ramp back up. And build this as far back as you want for as big of a head as you want. It's a nymph, so you don't have to be too economical with your thread wraps. Just whatever you think is going to be pretty. And I think that is going to be fine right there. We've got enough room for our whip finish and enough room for a drop of head cement. I'm going to do 5 turns right there. And there you go. A squirrel hair nymph. Kind of a variant of Dave Whitlock's red fox squirrel hair nymph. But pretty simple pattern, pretty effective fly. I really appreciate you watching, my friends. Now take care and we'll see you next time. All right, folks, welcome back. You can see we are at commentpicker.com/YouTube. Ignore these ads, this is a free website. So apparently Google thinks I'm a silver stacker. Sarge, I guess I've been watching too many of your videos. But how this thing works is I go down here and I paste my URL for the video in here. There's a couple of options I need to select. Filter duplicate users. You know, a lot of people comment back and forth and they have several comments in there. We only want them to be entered once. But we will include the replies. And I'm going to exclude my own username because I try to respond to every comment. So out of the 90 or so comments, you know, half of them are mine. So we'll click get YouTube comments. There's probably 40 or so unique users. Okay, it says 43. Now we scroll down here and all I have to do is click start and it's going to cycle through all these and it will pop out somebody's name and that's who's going to win this Barry Ord Clark book. So good luck, everybody. Okay, Jim Holland. Jim Holland, congratulations. You are the winner of Barry Ord Clark's book. So send me an email, matt@savageflies.com, and I'll get your address and we'll get this book in the mail to you. So thanks everybody, I really appreciate you participating. If you haven't yet looked at the Great Smoky Mountain material giveaway, that's going to be a great one, and that's running through November 15th. So take a look at that one if you haven't yet. It's going to be awesome. So that's all, my friends. I really appreciate you supporting the channel and supporting me and leaving encouraging comments. It just really means a lot to me. It keeps me motivated to keep going. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.